Shares of Adani Group companies are continuing to face backlash after a report from Hindenburg Research accused the company of an accounting fraud scheme. The short seller is doubling down on its take despite Adani's 413-page response disputing the claim. And I just exchanged a text this morning with the Hindenburg folks. Nathan Anderson, his team does really top work here, and I would quantify his work on Adani as very much fitting in that. Adani noting to him, they called him the Madoff of Manhattan. At the bottom of Hindenburg's research report, says this, quote, Adani seems unaware that Madoff lived in Manhattan, so he was quite literally his own Madoff of Manhattan. But again, the words are starting to get hot and heated here, and as you would expect, I mean, the third richest man in the world, his wealth is going up in smoke.
Yeah, I mean, we now have seen more than $60 billion in value wiped off of his various companies here that are under this umbrella. One of the other things that Adani came back with in that more than 400-page report was sort of saying, painting this as an attack on India. And then in Hindenburg's response, they called out sort of trying to fan nationalist fervor in that response. It doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index, $30 billion of his own net worth roughly also lost over the years.
Welcome back at Financial Fortune, your daily advisor that gives you news and tips for financial success. Just keep on watching. The revelation of Hindenburg's damning report caused the stock prices of Adani's publicly traded firms to plummet and erased more than $100 billion from the group's market value. Thus, the question is, what have Hindenburg's studies revealed? Is it reasonable, and what does Adani say? Okay, let's find out.
Looking elsewhere in the markets today, major short seller Hindenburg Research putting out a market-moving call on Adani Group. It's the family-owned businesses of Asian billionaire Gautam Adani. Here with more is Yahoo Finance's Alexandra Semenova. And this really goes straight to the heart of the empire of one of the richest people in the world. And it's having an effect across his different companies.
Yeah, absolutely, Julie. We're seeing some big moves this morning after Hindenburg Research, which is an activist short-selling firm, made a big call yesterday, publishing a report saying that Adani Group, an Indian conglomerate that runs a portfolio of energy and logistics companies, is committing what it called the largest con in corporate history. As we know, it also revealed a short position in the company. As we know, short-selling is an investment strategy that bets that a stock price will decline. It's essentially a bet on the downfall of a company. Hindenburg accused Adani Group and its billionaire founder and chairman of a brazen stock manipulation and accounting fraud scheme run over decades, partly through the use of shell companies. It also said that Adani Group has been investigated for misusing taxpayer funds, for corruption, for money laundering. And then separately, Hindenburg also flagged some financial concerns with the company, saying that it was taking on too much debt, that 7 of its publicly traded companies were overvalued. Adani Group, of course, dismissed all of those allegations, calling them baseless, calling them a malicious combination of selective misinformation and stale, baseless, and discredited allegations. Whether Hindenburg Research is right or not, we're seeing that call wipe out about $12 billion off of Adani's market value this morning. So, well, we'll see what happens with that.
It is interesting, that reaction, Alexandra. Hindenburg is not some bucket shop, one person running it. They've made some big calls in the past.
Exactly. So investors have good reason to believe that Hindenburg is right here. This is a highly respected firm whose track record has been correct so far. The firm is fairly young. It was founded in 2017, but even in its short tenure, it's already established its reputation by being correct on its call on Nikola, leveling big allegations of fraud with that company and then being right. We saw the SEC use Hindenburg's research on Nikola in its trial against Trevor Milton, and it's also made some other successful calls on SPACs and crypto companies. Now, short sellers obviously have a bad reputation. There's this notion that you're betting, on someone else's failure. However, some of the biggest instances of corporate fraud in history have started because someone had a short position in a company. So they also have a role in protecting investors sometimes by exposing fraud. And, if these allegations turn out to be correct, it will obviously be very consequential. This is the biggest company in India.
Good point. Alexandra Semenova, thanks so much. Appreciate it.
What was the rebuttal? What did we hear?
Yeah, so the rebuttal was a follow-on rebuttal, really, because the first response came Thursday when Adani Group held a meeting with bondholders. But then on Sunday in India, we got a much longer response. And this basically set out to reply to the 88 questions that were raised in the Hindenburg Research report that had alleged accounting fraud, market manipulation. And so Adani said nearly 3/4 of this information, it's already in the public domain. And then the balance of the questions, he says, relate to public shareholders, third parties, baseless allegations. So essentially what he's saying is that he's pretty angry overall about what has happened with Hindenburg Research. And he's saying that the whole thing amounts to nothing but a lie. It's tantamount to securities fraud. So we can't really get through all of the details of exactly what he said because it does come in at 413 pages. But overall, he says Hindenburg is making an attack not just on the company, he's also making an attack on India and its growth ambitions because, of course, Gautam Adani is seen as the Indian billionaire that is closest to Prime Minister Narendra Modi. He's also someone who's seen as carrying out a lot of Modi's ambitions in areas like green energy. The other point, of course, that he makes is the timing of this is something that's very particular since it coincides with the huge share sale.
Right, exactly. So what sort of impact has this whole thing had on the share sale? A bunch of Indian banks, but also some US players like Jefferies involved in underwriting, Annabelle.
Yeah, so basically this, just to give the high-level details here, so the follow-on share sale is worth $2.5 billion. It's extremely rare for a company as well because shares are being sold at a discount to try and woo those retail investors. So just looking at the different areas that we've seen so far, from the anchor portion, actually the response was quite strong. Companies like Maybank, Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, they're among the investors. But as for the overall subscriptions, well, that stood at 1% on Friday. There is still time left to go, and Indian public offerings, investors do typically wait until the last day of the share sale to place their bids, but still there are concerns, of course, around this attack from Hindenburg Research and essentially that it could help to sour sentiment. And then, as you mentioned, there are some questions coming through from more high-profile investors as well, like Bill Ackman, who has already said that he thinks the Hindenburg report has a lot of credibility to it. Well, he's actually now come out with another tweet, and you can see here saying that there are a lot of issues for banks that are involved in this equity sale, including you were just mentioning there, Jefferies, and they do need to do a lot more due diligence, Vonnie, as well.
What are the key allegations from Hindenburg's research? Of course, we've mentioned that Adani denies all of this, but what is it that has been said that is weighing on the shares?
So largely there are two, like account manipulation and fraud. The allegation is saying that the conglomerate, the port power conglomerate, has created shell companies from countries like UAE, Caribbean islands, and Mauritius, and that has led to tax theft, corruption, and money laundering, etc. These are the charges alleged by the U.S. research firm. But Adani CFO had denied all this allegation, and they also said that the timing of this particular report is today, which is Adani Group's flagship company, Adani Enterprises Limited, is launching a follow-on issue, which is India's largest follow-on issue. So the timing is he has also criticized the timing of this particular research report and the follow-on issue. So and the stocks has not reacted to that largely towards that, because by then the CFO has intervened and has made these kind of statements towards investors.
Yeah, on that point, the CFO said that the timing clearly betrays a, quote, brazen, malified intention to undermine and damage the share sale plan. So what happens next with that?
So the next important thing would be the FPO, because FPO opens today, and FPO is going to be the largest in the country. What we pick up from the company is that they are getting a great response from sovereign funds like IHC, Mubadala, ADIA, and others, and of course Indian domestic financial institutions such as LIC, Life Insurance Corporation, and other domestic financial institutions are also very keen to invest in this follow-on offer. So they are saying that this timing could be wrong, but they are believing that this follow-on issue of Adani Enterprises Limited will be a resounding success. We will have to wait and watch for more further stock exchange disclosures on the bids received from these financial institutions across the world.
There's a lot of back and forth going on right now, but we can't actually tell what's true and what's false. This is because it's currently Hindenburg's research versus Adani's responses, and it's difficult to choose a side in this case because, although Adani sounds shady, Hindenburg is a short-selling research firm. If Adani's stock price declines, that's beneficial for them. Therefore, we'll have to wait for potential judicial procedures with these charges. Although there are doubts as to whether the Indian government or regulatory authorities will conduct a thorough investigation, there is evidence that they have previously assisted the Adani Group in downplaying previous violations. But, in light of the foregoing, I'd like to know which side of this issue you support more, Adani or Hindenburg Research. There is still plenty to come from this, but please share your statistics in the comment section below.